Well, we might, I think, get a start, guys, if that's okay with you. Um, Lovely to see lots of familiar faces on Zoom today for this webinar, which is perhaps a different type of webinar to the ones that we've done previously that had been focused on particular ABVs or last week thinking about DataVat. In this case, today we're talking about the fresh new data, the August ABV release, and what were some things that we learned or found interesting about that release. We've got a bit of content prepared for you, but hope to have some opportunity to ask some questions and things as well. For those that I haven't bumped into, my name is Michelle Axford. I currently lead the genetic evaluation and delivery team, but I'm really pleased to be joined by Peter Thurn with me today. Pete, we've had an ongoing connection and have had the opportunity to work with you for many years now, and it's just great to have you involved in this webinar. Peter is Genetics Australia's Breeding and Genetics Manager. He's also a founding member of DataGene's Genetic Evaluation Standing Committee. I think this committee holds quite an important role in guiding the evolution of Australia's genetic evaluation service, thinking about both the evaluations themselves and how we design different calculations, but also in how we explain it and communicate it to the public. That is the group of researchers, of industry people, people that work both in wholesale and in kind of retail, and farmers, and people that work for representative organizations all come together around that table to help us make decisions. So great to have Pete involved with us today.
Thanks, Michelle.
So I thought we'd just start with a kind of a bit of an overview. If we look in the popular kind of press these days, the term that you see a lot of is big data. And I think the August ABV release is actually a really good example of big data. And what does big data look like in our field? In this run, so just, the information that you saw on Monday, there are 440 million ABVs calculated for this run. Between this run and the last public run in April, we had 4,000 more bulls evaluated, 75,000 more cows, and about a third of those cows had genotypes, had genomic information kind of added. We take those results and we turn them into something that you get to see in the form of DataVat. And I thought it might be useful just to kind of highlight some examples of how big data makes an impact on farm. And the first one is really kind of, thinking about how this information interacts with bull companies, because through DataVat, bull companies get the opportunity to look at what new bulls they have been able to genotype and assess and decide of, say 195 or 200 bulls that they might have screened, which are the 5 or 10 bulls that might end up in the next catalog. At the same time, that information on DataVat can be used to kind of assess the benefits of genomically testing some heifers. And in the case of one farmer that might have a couple hundred heifers or calves in the shed and probably only needs 100 of them to replace, DataVat helps us see that there's a value of about $10,000 net benefit after the cost of testing for that person who wants to genotype those animals. And then we take it even one step further and think about what happens in the milking shed. Well, the combination of the breeding values and the presentation on DataVat helps a particular farmer see that the high BPI cows are producing about 76 kilos more milk solids compared to the lower ones, and are lasting 4 months longer on average in the herd. So these are some practical examples, I think, of where that big data probably has a pretty big impact on farm. Pete, if you think about kind of DataVat and the delivery of the breeding values that you sort of have seen in recent times, what are the sorts of impacts that you see it having either at Genetics Australia or with clients that you're working with?
Yeah, I think just the uptake and the increase in the number of cows being genotyped has been a real positive thing in recent times. And when you're looking through the herd, the top herd list, and you look across and see the number of genotyped cows in each herd, and we're pushing that up into the, in some cases thousands in some herds. That's a real positive, and people are obviously starting to see the benefit of that. In terms of DataVat for us, I mean, it's been, not that I'm probably not totally across everything DataVat can do for me at this stage, but just having that real ease of having a place where I can go and quickly look up individual bulls, where I can download lists of bulls that have just recently been tested, all those sorts of things. It's a really helpful tool in that space.
Cool, thanks, Pete. So let's get into, what do we see on DataVat when we opened it up and had a look at some of the information that was contained in this release. And I suppose to start with, let's highlight cows first. One thing I found really interesting after this release, which we don't normally see, but when we share information, we get to see kind of what the most popular links are, the most popular clicks that people kind of make when they see the information that we distribute. And this time, the cows outranked the bulls. So the things that people were most interested were cow lists and things rather than bull lists. And I thought that was really informative, and just shows the kind of that we recognize the importance of ABVs for bulls, but also emphasizing the growing importance of ABVs for cows as well. So when we combine those breeding values of a bunch of females in herds together, the top herd on the Holstein side belongs to Trevor and Leah Parrish. And that average BPI for their herd was about 196. Now, just a reminder about what does 196 mean? I think the most important thing is, it's probably the top herd in the country for BPI, but that number itself, the definition is that's $196 more income after feed and herd costs per cow per year compared to the average cow. Some important points is we can only compare that 196 within a breed. We can't compare that number to another breed. At the top of the Jersey list, Con and Michelle Glennon and their family, that White Star herd, it's appeared a few times at the top of that list. This is a new achievement for the Glennons, but a massive achievement, particularly with a large number of cows. And in the red breeds, we had a tie between Graham's, the Graham family up in New South Wales, and the Bags at Leggett South, tied with a BPI of 108. Now, Pete, you've bumped into many of these herds along the way. What does it sort of take, you think, to make a top BPI herd? What do you have to do to get there?
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, the first thing you need to have is a focus and a goal. I mean, and there's no doubt that when you look at the likes of Parishes and Glennons and Grahams, they all are very focused and very driven, especially Trevor. I mean, Trevor Trine, he's up in New South Wales. He's probably surrounded by a lot more traditional registered herds than he is, and yet he goes out of his way to be the BPI champion in that area, and he does a really good job of it. And Con and Michelle are very focused on BPI in the Jersey job, and I mean there's quite a tussle between the Glennons and a few other herds knocking on the door in that Jersey space. So there's a bit of byplay behind who has the top herd in the Jersey arena, but a few other herds probably worth mentioning. The second herd in the Holsteins is Ray Kitchen's Corenda herd, which is a fantastic herd of cows, and Ray's another guy that's really very focused on breeding profitable cows. But he's in recent times has probably looked at a lot more pole genetics in his herd as well, and has made that part of his mantra. In the Jerseys, you look at Rob and Sandra Bacon, who I think are the top TWI and HWI herds. So that they're probably worth a mention as well. Maybe not quite as focused on BPI, but certainly kicking goals when it comes to health and type.
Excellent. I think just noting one of the other achievements is that Trevor and Leah Parrish also had the top genomic female with the which is I suppose the two go together. You need to have quite a lot of top BPI animals to make a top BPI herd, but they ended up with a couple of nods there in the lists this year. I also wonder if it's useful to highlight herds like Dixon's, Costers, Gelbarts. These are top 50 herds with more than 1,000 current cows. Yeah. And I just think that's amazing to have such high average BPI across the herd with so many cows. I think it's just an awesome achievement to see that.
Yep.
Great. Sort of into some of the action on the bulls side. In genetic evaluation, we do have lots of number ones, and I think it's nice to be able to recognize, in reality, having a team of high-ranked bulls is really what we're chasing, and we do like to have different ways of kind of describing bulls that are achieving. So our number one proven bull across Australia and international, so this is a bull that's proven in Australia or overseas, was the bull Perseus from CMEX with a BPI of 451. So Perseus is new to this list. He's added daughters in 4 different countries. He has some daughters in Australia of his own, but not enough not in enough herds yet for them to contribute to his Australian proof, but we'll see that follow through in subsequent sort of proofs. But certainly that the performance in 4 different countries, as well as his genomic breeding value based on information here in Australia, has placed him in that number 1 spot.
Probably, Michelle, and on Perseus, we probably saw Perseus coming a little bit through the results, the genomic results of his sons, even though he was always been at the pointy end of the list. We've probably taken in more Perseus sons in the last 3 years than we have of any other bull. And there was a few nice sons that we left behind. So he was kind of signalling that he had something, I think, or he's been signalling that for about the last 3 years, I think.
Yeah, something special coming. So what does it mean to you to kind of have to leave some bulls behind that are seen as?
Oh, I think it's just a sign of the times. Gone are the days of buying 120 bulls. It's more kind of like 15, and it's all about the selection pressure and improvement. And we don't need to buy 120 bulls to find out who the good ones are. We can buy 15 and with a higher degree of accuracy, get more of them right. So I think it's just you've just got to accept it. If you can't accept it, well, you probably just need to move on. It's not your space anymore.
But nice to have that early citer on that information. I'm sure that helps to add a little bit of confidence when you're making those selections to know that you're making good choices. Now, the next type of number 1 is the number 1 proven bull in Australia. Now, so to be Australian proven, that's really our gold standard. This means that we've got production data in at least 15 herds, workability and type data in at least 10 herds for Holsteins, and similar ratios for smaller breeds according to the breed size. So this is really our gold standard. And CB Contender from the ST sort of camp has come through with the BPI of 354, which is great. Shout out, Pete. We've got some ST online. It's great to see him appear in that number 1 proven Australia position. On the young bull side, so in terms of the genomic bulls, so these are bulls that don't have enough daughters in Australia or an interbull contribution from overseas, so he's not proven in other countries, is Proceed. But he's just one of 13 bulls. 13 bulls that are over 400 for BPI. So, Pete, when we were talking BPIs, we were celebrating not too long ago achievements of getting over 300 BPI, and now we're starting to celebrate over 400 BPI.
I had that exact conversation with a guy yesterday who had a nice enough bull that he'd tested, and he said, "Look, I don't think this is going to be good enough, but I just want you to tell me that that's the case." And he was low 300s, and I said, "Well, 2 years ago he probably would have been a walk-up starter, but today, if you're not probably in that 380 BPI ballpark, you're not going to get a look in, and you're probably also, if you are going to be 380, you need to be A2 and probably at least polled or something else. You're going to have more arrows in your bag than just a high BPI number."
Yep, it's and that's really the power of companies like yours who are testing large numbers of animals, because once we start doing the testing, breeding the next generation, testing those animals, it starts to kind of really push that cycle much more quickly, and that's where it kind of races ahead a little bit for us. On the Jersey side, the number one proven, Australia and International, was besieged with the BPI 245 from our mates across the waters in New Zealand, and a popular bull that's been around for a little while, but has now achieved that. This isn't the first run like that, but has that number one proven, so that gold standard sort of claim is met. With a BPI 226, and I think that might be one from your camp, Pete in Valonblast, coming through as number one on the genomic list. What do you reckon about the jerseys?
Yeah, look, we're obviously very happy with where Valonblast has settled out. He's only got 10 daughters so far, but he's taken quite a big jump up. And again, coming from Con and Michelle Glennon's herd, it's nice to have that backing of that sort of herd. Matt's a bull that has been around for a little while now. There's a couple of sons in the system. For a lot of breeders, he's been a go-to bull, I think, in the last few years. So it's good to see him come through and deliver as well. So no, I think things are, it's life's hard as a Jersey breeder. You don't have the choices. You look across the fence to your black and white mates, and there's plenty of choices. The choices aren't as numerous in the Jersey world, but there's still some good bulls there for you to work with. You just got to be probably got to be a little better breeder than those Holstein guys, because it's not all dished up to you on a platter.
One of the things that I really was interested in seeing, Pete, is just the number of companies that are working, especially on that genomic list. There's quite a lot of companies, and I think that bodes well for having, when we've got a smaller population, having many companies that are all interested in getting number one bulls on that genomic list. I think that's a good start for what's to come.
Yeah, I think, the reality for us in the Jersey world is we're probably exporting maybe more semen these days than we are using domestically. But unfortunately for us, there's some populations around the world that could contribute maybe globally to Jersey improvement, like South Africa. There's some amazing Jersey herds in South Africa, but just through disease restrictions and things like that, you can't get that genetics back out of those countries. So. But yeah, I think there's still enough options and enough interest in jerseys to create the sort of genetic progress trend that you can see there.
And some really active breeders on the genomic side. We're noticing there's a couple of herds that are approaching 1,000 genotyped Jersey females in the single herd. We've got 2 herds that are close to that, and one herd that's exceeded it, and I think that's fantastic. So just thinking about some of the other changes, we've talked about some of the changes with breeding values, but what are some of the other changes in terms of the delivery? And, DataVat has been a key feature of our release this August, and has some changes, I suppose, that it might be useful to kind of highlight. One is the ability to be able to log in now as a farmer or as a service provider. So, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were still only able to work with logins to farmers, but now we've added that service provider function. So that's quite helpful. So it means that a farmer can share their breeding value information and the reports on DataVat with trusted advisors, and advisors can request access to information from farmers that they're working with closely. We also have, so just highlighting some of the reports and tools. One of the newest reports that you might have noticed that's been added to DataVat is the NACIS list for people that are looking for NACIS bulls of identity information of lots of bulls. That's available on reports and tools, as is the little heifer selector tool that I showed earlier that shows the benefits of using genomics in heifers is also in that spot. In addition to things like the genetic futures report and genetic progress reports that have been updated with the ABV information from August are all available in that sort of spot. Animal Search has got some new filters to make it a little bit easier, especially on the cow side. It makes it easier to find herds with some filters that have been added there. And there's additional filters for some of the bulls as well that people have been asking for. So take a look there. For bull companies, shortly we'll be adding some more non-ACIS bulls that you can have a look at as well. I know there's quite a number of bull companies on this channel, so there'll be some extra non-ACIS bulls available for you to have a look at shortly too. Oh, just a reminder on that Animal Search, a couple of the favorite tools that we know people look at. So the index graphs to see the contributions towards BPI, you find them in the Animal Search area. And the comparison tool, I think this Pete Williams, I think is one of your favorite tools, is also available on Animal Search that you can have a look at what's changed from last run to this run. And Pete and Bruce had a nice little conversation about that last week. That's also there just as a reminder. Lastly, I wanted to highlight in the ABV lists area, new in this run are the Good Bulls guides. The NACIS ABV files, cow files, are now populating on that ABV lists menu section. Pete, some of the conversations that we hear from time to time is thinking about breeding values, and you've had an opportunity to have a look at this information just recently, where people were thinking about the on-the-ground impact of a trait like daughter fertility. We can see the daughter fertility breeding values in DataVat, but sometimes we need to take a step back to kind of look at how that's playing out on farm. And one of the questions that people had asked us, I think, is you've been telling us for a while that daughter fertility ABV trends have been improving and that the bulls are getting better and the cows are getting better, but are we actually seeing that in terms of a change in 6-week in calf rate kind of on farm? Now, John Morton, who's just an incredible veterinarian epidemiologist, has had a look at this question just recently, and what he has, I'll just see if I can get my pointer going. What he's shown is the blue line, which is the average of cows' sires' breeding values for daughter fertility. And we noticed that it has been improving really sort of nicely since genomics and since the improvement of the daughter fertility trait. On the same graph, he's also mapped this maroon line, which is the breeding values of cows. So bulls start to accelerate first, cows start to accelerate a little bit later. Then the bit that's brand new, which I thought was really fascinating, was this green line, which is what a herd looks like. And one of the things that we see is that it's taking time for that herd to improve, because it takes time to make a mating decision that turns into a heifer, that turns into a milking cow, which turns into a whole herd. And his summary of this was that we should only just start to see improvements in on-the-ground fertility at a herd level in about 2019, based on the genetic trends that have taken place over the past few years. And we are seeing just marginal improvements from 2019 in herd reproductive performance. So it's just a nice validation that what the numbers have been predicting is taking place, but it does take time to achieve whole herds of high daughter fertility ABV animals. Pete, you've heard this question before. People have asked, I'm sure you, the same sort of question. What was your reaction when you saw John's analysis?
Yeah, look, I think that to me makes perfect sense. There's always been that lag between, you know, the finding the bulls and getting those genes to work their way into the population. I suppose there's other things you could point out of that graph is the simple fact that the cows have always been higher than the bulls, probably points to some residual genetics that our population of cows has had versus the populations that we've been drawing our bulls from. And I think that difference is highlighted in this graph as well. But, you know, I suppose all I'd say is, imagine if we were trying to address this particular situation without genomics. You know, this would be, and because don't forget, the majority of this situation arose without genomics, and we've been trying to correct it since genomics. If we were trying to do this just using what I refer to as naturally aspirated breeding values, you know, we wouldn't be seeing any sort of improvement much in our lifetimes. So, you know, we should be grateful for the fact that we've got genomics, because it's the only way you'll be able to address this situation genetically in such a short time scale.
Yeah, very good point, Pete. Very good point. In terms of other changes at Datagene, I suppose I wanted to use this opportunity to welcome Thuy Nguyen, who's Datagene's new stakeholder relations manager. Thuy joined us last Monday, so it's great to have another face on board, and you will have the chance to interact with Thuy in talking all things genetics and Datagene going forward. And we'll also a second point in relation to kind of people around Datagene is that board recruitments are underway with applications due the 28th of August for anyone who's interested in putting their hand up for one of those non-executive director positions at Datagene. The changes that we've talked about today, as well as other information that we're compiling all the time, is available on the Datagene website for anyone who wants to have a look. Leanne's done a fantastic job of pulling together some brand new case studies, new fact sheets that are topical for this time of the year, and they're all summarized on Datagene for you. So pop in and have a look at some of the new material. There's a new tech note on female ABVs. There's a new genetics backgrounder that gives a sort of some full bottle on ABV calculations that you can download if you want to, and some three new really interesting stories to have a read through. Thanks, Leanne, for doing all of that work for us. And just as we just about get to the close, I wanted to maybe pull this up together a little bit by thinking about genetic trends, and in this case it's Holstein, but this similar picture is true for other breeds. What this graph does is a typical genetic trend graph showing the change in the cow's sires, BPI, over time. So the horizontal axis is the year of birth of cows. The vertical axis is the average BPI for cows born in particular years. But it overlays a number of activities and steps that we've taken towards improving our genetic valuation system over time. And I think the work that's been done, particularly as genomics has come online, as Pete has mentioned, in addition to some of the extra extension and collaborative industry work that's been done, has made a real difference over the past decade or so. And I've known many of you that are on the call for a little while, and none of this could happen if we weren't working together on it. So just having a look at that graph, if you could have a think about what tools were you involved in kind of developing? You might have been the first to try something, or we might have been ringing up and asking for some feedback about a particular tool. You might have brought an idea to the table that has eventuated in a new feature or a new value or a new way of approaching the statistics. You might have use the tools to make a real difference in a client's herd or a real difference to your business. We all have to work together to make this sort of stuff work, and it's been quite a team approach, I think, to get to this point. And this is just a nice way of highlighting the progress that, as a group, we have been able to make. When you look back, Pete, and reflect on that, are there any standouts that were highlights for you?
Oh, Michelle.
There's probably a few disasters maybe from time to time.
There's probably the odd one. I must admit, my time in the industry goes back to I think it was 1988. So I nearly capture most of that timeline. There's a couple of blokes that are online at the moment that can actually go back a little further than me. So I'm not quite as embarrassed as I could be. Just with their presence around, knowing that there's a couple of older, more wiser chaps than me. But probably things like the ASI, I think they were as simple as it is. They were a little bit groundbreaking, a little bit controversial back in the day, and that was something that was spawned out of what we were doing at Genetics Australia with a thing called the component index. And then obviously the APR was the first step towards where we are now with the BPI, and the first step towards a kind of total merit index. I mean, that was a pretty important step forward. And again, it was probably one of those things that, as controversial as it was, it did start to drag more people into the ABV space, I think, because we were starting to accommodate greater needs other than just genomics is the big one. I mean, it's a massive one, and in my time I was involved with both the CRC projects, and we'd been working with Mike Goddard for years on Mike's microsatellite work leading up to what we now have as genomics. So it was probably only all the work that Mike did in that microsat space. It was probably only fitting that he was the guy that, along with Thuy and Ben, that sort of wrote that seminal paper about genomics. So yeah, there's lots of things there that, I certainly haven't been responsible for, but I've looked on with a lot of interest as they've been as they were being developed.
Thanks, Pete. Just as we just kind of can wrap things up, I think it's just a good reminder that the genetic gain for BPI is still strong. We're seeing that in each release after release, that we see those bulls driving towards higher numbers than what we've seen before, and that has a real and meaningful impact on herds. The repeated validation studies that we do again and again, they continue to verify that BPI and ABVs are working well on farm. They are making a difference. If you're looking for information about breeding values, the DataVat's a great source for that. Plus, there's explanatory information on datagene.com.au if you want to have a look. Yeah, it's been a nice run with quite a few new animals being added since April, which is very important to making sure genetic gain continues. I just want to make sure that we always remember how we get to this point, which is about having strong contributions from researchers and from data suppliers to make sure that we can deliver these breeding values the best way that we possibly can. Thanks for all that you do. Now, I know we've run a little bit over 1 o'clock, but if you'll permit me, certainly we can happy to stay on for a little bit to ask, or hopefully answer any questions or points of discussion that you wanted to raise. Please feel free to kind of unmute your mics and ask away if you wish. Anything on the chat line that I've missed?
No questions on the chat line, Michelle.
Okay. You've made it very easy for us. Thanks very much for joining us today. Leanne, what's next in terms of the webinar series?
That completes our first pilot series. So we're going to take a week or two off and review whether it's been a success or not. And if it has, then we'll come up with another series. And we're definitely thinking about running some more towards the lead up to the December ABV release, if not before.
Fantastic. Thanks, Leanne, for making this all happen. There's a lot of mechanics that go behind the scene, and it's great to have you to be able to help us out to do that. Pete, thanks very much for joining us today. Great to have a little conversation with you, and hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. Best wishes for a terrific August, and hopefully we get a little bit more sunshine. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you all.
Bye.
See you all. Bye.